Imagine the year 1487. The air above the mighty island capital of Tenochtitlan was not just hot from the midday sun. It seemed to shimmer with an unearthly ritual heat that rose from countless ceremonial fires. The great stone causeways that linked the island to the mainland were choked, not with traders, but with a solemn, relentless procession of captives. These were men from conquered provinces, paraded before the vast silent crowds, stumbling beneath the shadow of the colossal Templo Mayor with coarse ropes threaded through their pierced noses. For 4 days and 4 nights, a spectacle of a scale nearly unimaginable to modern minds unfolded, marking the reconsecration of the Aztecs' most sacred site. The Mexica, the core people of the Aztec Empire, are said to have offered up anywhere from 4,000 to 20,000 prisoners of war in this single, immense ceremony. While some early Spanish chroniclers claimed even more fantastic numbers, which modern historians now view as logistical exaggerations, the event nonetheless remains one of the most profound and chilling religious demonstrations of the entire pre-Columbian world. To the shocked eyes of the first Europeans who would later record it, this event was an act of madness, barbaric, cruel, and utterly incomprehensible. But to the Aztecs themselves, it was not chaos. It was a ceremony of absolute necessity. It was sacred duty. It was the price of the sun, the solemn interest payment on a cosmic debt that had sustained their world since time began. To truly grasp the Aztec cosmos, one must set aside all modern judgment and seek to understand the terrifying logic that bound them to this practice. Not why they sacrificed, but the meticulous, terrifying how and the deep mythological currents that made this blood write a fundamental covenant. The ritual began not with a scream, but with an eerie stillness that preceded the sound of the drums. At the summit of the stepped pyramid, smoke from censers of burning copal resin billowed into the brilliant blue sky. Then, the silence was shattered as shell trumpets screamed through the air, and enormous drums boomed like deep thunder, establishing the solemn, rhythmic heartbeat of the rite. One by one, the condemned were led upward, climbing the dizzying steps toward the abode of the gods. At the platform's center lay a smooth, curved sacrificial stone, the Xochiyaoyotl, already slick and dark with the blood of previous victims. This was the place of ultimate transformation. Here, 4 expert priests would quickly and forcefully seize the victim's limbs, pinning him to the stone. A 5th figure, the High Priest of Huitzilopochtli, the mighty god of war and the sun, would stand over him, lifting a razor-sharp, expertly crafted obsidian blade. In one fluid, practiced motion, the high priest would plunge the flint or obsidian knife into the man's chest. His hands would vanish into the opening, and then, dramatically re-emerging, he would hold aloft the still-beating heart, a trembling crimson jewel offered to the sun, Tonatiuh. This heart, the ultimate fuel, was the teyollia, the life force, intelligence, and soul principle of the individual. Once offered, it would be placed in a stone vessel, sometimes burned so its spirit might rise with the smoke to nourish the heavens, or in certain sacred instances, consumed by the priesthood in an act of profound communion. The body, now deemed a discarded vessel, was sometimes flayed, decapitated, and hurled down the pyramid steps. The head was later prepared and placed upon a tzompantli, a towering rack of skulls that stood as a constant, stark reminder of the god's power and the empire's dominance. According to some Spanish accounts, the rest of the remains were occasionally given to animals in the emperor's vast menagerie, though archaeological verification of this specific detail remains uncertain. What we know for sure is that every gesture, every cut, every sound was meticulously calculated, imbued with purpose and meaning that ran deeper than simple terror. The entire practice was rooted in the chilling, yet self-sacrificing story of their origins. The Aztecs believed their world, the fifth sun, was inherently unstable, having been preceded by 4 failed worlds, each destroyed by a cosmic cataclysm. When the current universe was created, the great gods Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca tore apart the primordial, crocodile-like earth monster, Tlaltecuhtli, to create the earth and sky. Yet, her spirit remained inconsolable, howling in the night, demanding human hearts and blood as recompense for her dismemberment. Even the sun, Tonatiuh, refused to move across the sky until the other gods sacrificed themselves in a massive funeral pyre at Teotihuacan, offering their hearts to give the new sun strength. The creation of humankind itself was an act of blood transgression. Quetzalcoatl descended to the underworld, stole the bones of ancient beings, and then mixed them with his own divine blood to create the new race of humans. Thus, humanity was born with a blood debt, an eternal obligation to repay the gods for their existence. Sacrifice, in this context, was not cruelty. It was moral repayment, the essential maintenance of cosmic order. If the hearts of warriors were the fuel for the sun god, Huitzilopochtli, then the rituals for other deities revealed even more complex and equally terrifying methods. For Ixiptla, the flayed one, the god of agriculture, gold, and the renewal of crops, the ritual was an elaborate, weeks-long pageant of death and renewal. 40 days before the ceremony, a chosen captive was elevated to live as the god's double, draped in exquisite gold and bright spoonbill feathers, honored as divine and paraded through the streets. But on the festival day of Toxhiuhmolpilia, his divine life ended. He was tied to a stone platform, Teyollia, armed only with a feathered club, and forced to fight elite Aztec warriors armed with razor-sharp macuahuitl, obsidian-bladed swords. This was a ritual duel, symbolizing the shedding of the husk to reveal the new crop. When he inevitably fell, his skin was carefully peeled away, a symbolic husk, and worn by the priests for 20 days, mirroring the cycle of maize shedding its outer layer to reveal new life. To honor Mixcoatl, the serpent of the clouds and god of the hunt, the victim was tied to a wooden frame and transformed into living prey. Warriors fired arrows at him until his heart was pierced, an act that sanctified their weapons and ensured success in the coming hunt. These were not acts of gratuitous violence. They were deep, symbolic rituals designed to interact directly with the forces of nature. And in the most solemn existential rite of all, the new fire ceremony, Toxhiuhmolpilia, held every 52 years when the Aztec ritual and solar calendars completed their great cycle, the world held its breath. Could the universe truly end in the darkness? That was the terrifying question that hung over the empire for days before the ceremony. Every single flame, from the temple pyres to the smallest household hearth, was extinguished. The world waited in total darkness and silence, fasting and throwing out all old household items, believing the dreaded female stellar demons, the Tzitzimimi, might descend to devour the earth. When the constellation known as the Fire Drill, likely Orion's Belt, reached the zenith of the night sky, priests on the sacred hill of Xochiyaoyotl opened the chest of a man and used a fire drill, Xochiyaoyotl, to ignite a new fire in his empty chest cavity. The first flame of the new 52-year cycle was born from this sacrifice. From this flame, torches spread across the empire, carried by runners, rekindling creation itself and declaring the world saved for another cycle. Every moment of the Aztec life was bound up in this cosmic, high-stakes game. But where did the thousands of sacrificial victims come from? The most common source was the Flowery Wars, Xochiyaoyotl, battles fought not primarily for territorial conquest, but specifically to take prisoners for the altars. The name itself, Flowery War, reflects the symbolic link between the flower of life and the noble death. Xochiyaoyotl, or flowery death, was considered the most blissful, most fortunate death an Aztec warrior could achieve, ensuring transport to the realm of Huitzilopochtli. Aztec armies advanced with a singular focus, their elite fighters wielding the macuahuitl, a weapon designed to wound and incapacitate rather than instantly kill, maximizing the chances of capturing an offering. Those captured were then brought back to Tenochtitlan, bound, decorated with paper and feathers, and treated as living offerings, destined to nourish the very gods who made the sun rise. Yet, the paths to the altar were diverse. In the sacred ball courts, teams competed in the deadly ullamaliztli game, driving a heavy rubber ball through stone rings using only their hips, knees, and elbows. For the losers, death could await. The team captain, or sometimes his entire team, might be sacrificed to restore divine favor. Even slaves might be offered, sometimes chosen by their masters, to accompany them into the afterlife, or as a repayment for extraordinary good fortune in business. The most devout offerings, however, were the god impersonators, men selected to embody deities like Tezcatlipoca or Xipe-Totec. They were groomed for a year, adorned with jewels, taught songs, given wives, and worshipped by the public. When their time came, they often walked willingly to the altar, completing the ultimate cycle of imitation and devotion. Can you imagine a society where a child's tears were a form of currency? In certain ceremonies, even children were offered, a practice tied to Tlaloc, the rain god. Some sources indicate that the tears of the young were sacred to Tlaloc, and that priests sought them to ensure rainfall, going so far as to make the children cry before the sacrifice so their tears might summon the nourishing rains. Though such chilling reports may be partly influenced by Spanish interpretation of the rites, they underline the profound extent of divine hunger that spared no one. The grim reputation of the Aztecs often overshadows the more subtle, non-lethal forms of devotion. They did not limit offerings to humans. Animals, too, were offered. Jaguars, eagles, deer, snakes, butterflies, and shellfish, each chosen for its symbolic link to a particular god. Furthermore, priests and nobles constantly practiced auto-sacrifice, drawing their own blood from their ears, tongues, or legs with sharp bone awls or maguey thorns, and burning the blood-soaked paper strips. The rising smoke was believed to carry their very essence to the heavens, a personal, continuous tribute to the gods. Others buried offerings of food, jade, or shells, or crafted dough effigies of the gods, soali from amaranth, and honey mixed with a single precious drop of human blood. These edible idols were burned or consumed in ceremonies that blurred the line between worship and sustenance. Every act, from the grand public execution to a single drop of personal blood, formed part of a vast, unceasing cosmic contract. By the time the Spanish arrived, the Aztec Empire had refined sacrifice into an imposing, powerful spectacle. The great ceremonial precinct of Tenochtitlan was not just a temple complex. It was a city designed to channel awe and fear. When the drums began, the populace moved as one, gathering before the towering pyramids, tens of thousands watching the victims climb in solemn procession. The intoxicating smell of burning copal and human blood mixed in the air, which trembled with constant hypnotic chanting. Spanish witnesses would later claim that the Templo Mayor's steps ran slick with gore, rivers of blood flowing into the streets below. While such descriptions were likely embellished to justify the conquest, even when reduced to their probable scale, the rituals were astonishing in both scope and discipline, perfectly reinforcing the social and political power of the Aztec state. The logic of the Aztec faith was a perpetual cycle. The gods had sacrificed their own blood to create humanity. Therefore, humanity must return that essence to sustain the gods. To stop was to condemn the world to darkness. To deny the gods was to invite the collapse of the cosmos. So long as hearts beat upon their altars, the heavens would continue to turn, the sun would rise, the rains would fall, maize would grow. And though the cost was immense, with scholarly estimates suggesting the empire may have offered up as many as 200,000 to 250,000 lives in a single year at its height, a figure still fiercely debated, the Aztecs believed it was a necessary price to pay for cosmic survival. Within the temple walls, the cries of the condemned mingled with the music, the drums, and the prayers, forming the very rhythm of the universe, a pact between mortals and gods, sealed forever in crimson. When the final heart was raised to the sun, the high priest's hands trembling with exhaustion and glory, the crowd erupted in praise. They truly believed that through this powerful ultimate offering, the world had been granted the grace to endure for another day. And for a time, it did. Don't miss a single chapter of this amazing, complex history. We've reconstructed this powerful civilization using the latest historical insights and brought it to life through immersive animation to make it more engaging and understandable. Our content is based on respected historians and archaeologists, with references shown on screen. If you found this deep dive into the Aztec world compelling, make sure to like, comment, and share this video and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming episodes on the rise and fall of the great Mesoamerican empires. More incredible stories are on the way. Stay tuned, and thank you for watching.